Ancient Rome is celebrated as one of the greatest civilizations in history. Its law, architecture, military strength, and philosophy have shaped the foundations of the modern world. People marvel at its engineering marvels like aqueducts and roads, at its arenas, temples, and libraries, and at the image of disciplined legions that conquered vast territories. But behind this magnificent image lies another Rome, a Rome that was built not only on conquest and innovation, but also on inequality, oppression, and suffering. Beneath the grand statues and shining marble, there were countless lives controlled, silenced, and diminished. And at the center of this suffering were the women of Rome. To be a woman in ancient Roman society was to exist under the constant shadow of control. Women were not seen as individuals with rights or freedom, but as dependents, first belonging to their fathers and later to their husbands. Their lives were shaped not by personal desire, but by duty, obedience, and submission. From the moment a girl was born, her fate was predetermined. Unlike her brothers, she was not celebrated as a future leader, scholar, or soldier. Instead, she was viewed as a vessel of family honor, destined to be exchanged in marriage to strengthen alliances or secure wealth. A Roman girl could be promised in marriage at an age we would now find unthinkable. Love and choice had little to do with it. Marriage in Rome was rarely companionship. It was an arrangement, a negotiation between families. The bride's opinion was irrelevant. What mattered was her dowry, her family's reputation, and the potential children she might produce. Once married, she entered her husband's household not as an equal partner, but as property. The expectations were clear: remain chaste, obey without question, bear children, preferably sons, and uphold the family's honor. If she failed, even through circumstances beyond her control, her punishment could be severe. In many ways, a woman's body was never her own. It belonged first to her father, and then to her husband. Roman law reinforced this hierarchy with brutal clarity. Women were placed under a system known as tutela mulierum, or guardianship of women. This meant that even wealthy, educated women could not act independently in most legal matters. They could not freely manage property, conduct contracts, or even represent themselves in court. Their voices were systematically silenced by the legal structures of their society. And when women stepped outside these boundaries, Rome made sure they paid the price. Adultery, or even the suspicion of it, could destroy a woman's life. Accusations alone could lead to humiliation, banishment, or even death. Men, however, were judged differently. A husband's affairs with slaves or prostitutes were often tolerated. But if his wife strayed, even under duress, her punishment could be merciless. This double standard was embedded in Roman culture. It revealed the brutal truth: women were not valued as people, but as symbols of purity, honor, and lineage. Their worth was tied to how well they served the needs of men. But the cruelty did not stop within the household. Roman society could also turn women into public spectacles. In some cases, women accused of crimes were paraded through the streets, exposed to ridicule and shame. Others faced punishments designed to strip them of dignity, reducing them to warnings for others who might consider stepping out of line. Even motherhood, which was often idealized, was not without suffering. A woman's role was to produce children, yet childbirth was perilous in a world without modern medicine. Many women died young, their bodies exhausted by repeated pregnancies. Their deaths were rarely mourned beyond their role as mothers and wives. They were replaceable, forgotten, absorbed into the machinery of family and empire. And yet within these confines, some women still found ways to assert influence. Elite Roman women from powerful families occasionally shaped politics behind the scenes, advising their husbands or sons, or using their wealth to secure power. But even these rare exceptions were exceptions, not the rule. The average woman had little to no agency, her life dictated by traditions that saw her as less than fully human. When we think of Rome, we often imagine emperors, senators, gladiators, and generals. We speak of Julius Caesar, Augustus, and Marcus Aurelius. We picture grand temples and bloody arenas, but we rarely stop to consider the silent majority, the women who lived and died in the shadows of this empire, their stories left untold. Their silence was not because they had nothing to say, but because their voices were deliberately erased. In a society that prided itself on law and order, women were excluded from the rights that made those laws revolutionary. The empire's greatness came at the cost of their freedom. Some might argue that Rome was simply a product of its time, and that all ancient societies oppressed women. While that is true to some extent, Rome perfected the system, embedding it deeply into law, culture, and family life. The oppression was not just social, but institutional. It was designed, enforced, and perpetuated for centuries. And yet these women endured. They raised families, managed households, and, in rare moments, influenced history in subtle but powerful ways. Their resilience, even in the face of systemic cruelty, is a testament to human strength. But we must not mistake endurance for acceptance. Survival under oppression does not erase the injustice of that oppression. The women of ancient Rome lived lives shaped by constraints, their humanity reduced to roles defined by men. Their suffering is a shadow that stretches across the empire's celebrated history, a reminder that glory often hides cruelty. So the next time we admire Rome's monuments, laws, or conquests, we should also remember the invisible cost. Behind the triumphal arches and marble columns were women whose lives were controlled, silenced, and forgotten. Their stories may not have been written in stone, but they are as much a part of Rome's legacy as its emperors and battles. The grandeur of Rome was real, but so was the suffering. And to truly understand the empire, we must confront both. Because Rome was not just a civilization of greatness, it was also a civilization of silence. A civilization that built its power not only on conquest abroad, but on control at home. And in that silence, in that control, lies one of the darkest truths of the ancient world.